Venezuelan Vice President of Communications Jorge Rodriguez this Friday shared details of the contract signed to attack Venezuela and overthrow the legitimate government of Nicolas Maduro. This Thursday marked the first time since February 28th that the Chinese mainland reported 0 imported cases of COVID-19. According to World Health Organization, COVID-19 could kill up to 190,000 people across Africa if not contained. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. Venezuelan Vice President of Communications Jorge Rodriguez this Friday shared details of the contract signed to attack Venezuela and overthrow the legitimate government of Nicolas Maduro.
This contract will go down in history as the most infamous action that any person has ever perpetrated against a country, against his own country, but not even in the world history of treason. Of the many devious actions throughout the history of humankind, had something the likes of this been seen, that a person would dare to sign a contract with a foreign occupying force that covers assassination, the elimination of a constitution, the elimination and abolition of the sovereignty of the Republic, the assassination of political adversaries, including the President of the Republic and leaders of the Venezuelan Revolution.
Venezuela's Attorney General is set to formalize charges against the mercenaries and terrorists captured over the course of this week.
Delitos a imputar por parte del Ministerio Público.
Crimes to be charged by the public ministry. Conspiracy with the foreign government, typified in our criminal laws as an aberrant crime that Venezuelan citizens associated with foreign governments to commit crimes, to kill, and in this case the conspiracy with the governments of the United States and Colombia, as already proven by what has been described above. Taking advantage of the fact that in Venezuela a terrible and hard fight is being waged against a pandemic like COVID-19. In the middle of all this, they wanted to make these ambushes that would represent no heroism, rebellion, illegal trafficking of weapons of war, financial terrorism, and criminal conspiracy.
The Attorney General also referred to the charges against the US mercenaries involved in these terrorist incursions.
In the case of foreign citizens, terrorism, conspiracy, illicit trafficking with weapons of warfare, and criminal association, obviously to the detriment of the Venezuelan state.
And SAB also announced that extradition orders had been issued against J.J. Rendon and Jordan Gaudreau due to their implication in the failed incursion into Venezuela. The Attorney General also called on international agencies to denounce this attack against Venezuela, sponsored by the governments of the United States and Colombia.
Como fiscal general de la República,
as Attorney General of the Republic, I request that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, the Presidency of the UN Security Council, and the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, take a stance and emphatically reject this flagrant violation of international law by Colombia and the United States against the people of Venezuela, against our sovereignty.
In an exclusive interview with Telesur on Thursday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro stressed that the attempted armed incursion of May 3rd was a covert operation ordered by US President Donald Trump. He also stressed that all official communication with the United States government has been blocked.
They tried to assassinate me on August 4, 2018, authorized and ordered by Donald Trump. The story will put everything in its place in its due moment once the documents are declassified. This will be proven. They have also tried a coup d'etat that tragically ended on April 30th last year. Economic sanctions, offering money for whoever takes my head. And this covert operation. This has all of the aspects of a covert operation. So through this group, they could try to attack and fill of violence in our country. They have even gone to the extreme of thinking that they could come into the country and nothing would happen. And our country has a defensive system of civic and military and police that is called the Bolivarian Shield, and it's ongoing 24 hours a day. So if it wasn't the commission that saw them in the Bay of Macuto in the first invasion and totally neutralized them, it was going to be another one. Our country is ready to combat. That's what they don't want to understand in Washington. Our country is ready to combat. Our country is ready to combat. Our armed forces are ready to combat. We want peace, but we have a complete vigilance system of intelligence, counterintelligence, world collaboration of important world forces, of elements in the world, including people from Washington, from Bogota, that they don't want war in Venezuela. They want no violence. There has always been dialogue. Or I think more than dialogue, there have been communications going back and forth. After May 3rd, everything was cut. They don't answer any WhatsApp. They don't answer phones. They're in mute. We have used 3 different ways that we have with 3 different authorities of the Trump government. We have sent messages and total mute. They just pressed the mute button. Total silence.
This Friday, St. Lucia will welcome 219 nationals repatriated in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. The country has reported 18 confirmed COVID-19 patients, 17 of whom have fully recovered.
St. Lucia has recorded a total of 18 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 2 additional cases have recovered, bringing to 17 the number of cases that have fully recovered and have been reintegrated into their communities. We now have 1 active case currently in hospital care, and this individual is recovering well. On Friday, May 8, 2020, the Department of Health and Wellness will receive 219 St. Lucians who are cruise ship workers on the Carnival Glory and the Caribbean Princess. These passengers will be received and placed into quarantine for a period of 14 days as per the country's established protocol.
From Monday to Friday and for the next 2 weeks, businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis will be allowed to resume limited operations as the government moves to relax some of the measures implemented to stop the spread of the coronavirus. The country has reported just 15 COVID-19 cases and no fatalities.
Businesses will not only have a 5-day work week to operate, but an additional hour as well on each day of limited business operations. Please note that the nightly curfew will continue and that it must be adhered to. Nightly curfew will now start at 8 p.m. and end an hour earlier at 5 a.m. the following day. Our medical experts have advised us that these additional hours at the start and the end of the day are important to allow not only for more economic activity, but to allow for our citizens to get more engaged in exercise routines such as walking and jogging, as this is one of the ways we fight the COVID disease.
Haitian President Jovenel Moïse this Thursday announced the arrival of medical supplies sent by the Chinese government to combat the coronavirus pandemic. The president revealed that the shipment contained N95 masks, face shields, hospital beds, respirators and surgical tables, as well as other supplies. The Haitian government also noted that local industry is manufacturing 50,000 pieces of personal protective equipment to prevent the spread of COVID-19. According to the Minister of Public Health, a second shipment of medical supplies will arrive in mid-May. The ministry has reported 129 positive COVID-19 cases and 12 deaths. More stories coming up after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. This Thursday, May 7th, marked the first time since February 28th that the Chinese mainland reported 0 imported cases of COVID-19. Chinese health officials informed that the number of current infections has dropped to 260, the lowest figure since January 20th. In total, China has reported almost 83,000 cases, while the death toll stands at over 4,000. Authorities have noted the country will continue to support the WHO's global initiative to develop a vaccine against COVID-19. During a top-level meeting chaired by President Xi Jinping, it was stressed that China will improve its capability in terms of responding to major public health emergencies based on the experiences gained during this pandemic. The Spanish government has refused to grant permission to the Madrid region to loosen its coronavirus restrictions. The Spanish Health Ministry said the area in and around the capital was not yet ready to move to the next phase of de-escalation of the lockdown. The decision came just 24 hours after the regional public health director resigned over the Madrid government's bid to loosen the lockdown from Monday, stressing that the move was not based on health criteria. Deputy Prime Minister Pablo Iglesias accused the region's Conservative president of playing with people's lives for political ends. Meanwhile, Barcelona's beaches opened for a short time from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Friday to allow people to swim and jog. The COVID-19 death toll in Spain has risen to over 26,000, while the number of diagnosed cases has reached more than 260,000, the second highest number in the world. In the United States, Democrats have demanded details of the Trump Organization's requests for coronavirus aid from the United Kingdom. Congressional investigators in Washington are demanding information about loans and other funds that the Trump Organization, the real estate company owned by President Donald Trump, has requested from foreign governments, including the UK, amid the coronavirus crisis. The demand for information follows a media report last month that said that the Trump Organization was seeking UK and Irish bailout funds to cover the wages of employees furloughed due to the pandemic from the company's golf properties in Europe. Caroline Maloney, the Democratic chairwoman of the House Oversight and Reform Committee, suggested the decision to seek funding in the UK was problematic and potentially a violation of the US Constitution, which calls for a president to have undivided loyalty to the US. The US Congress has already passed legislation prohibiting US taxpayer funds from being used to benefit companies in which Donald Trump holds a stake. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has appealed for an all-out effort to end hate speech globally in the context of the coronavirus pandemic. As of Friday, the global COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 274,000, while more than 3.9 million people have been infected.
COVID-19 does not care who we are, where we live, what we believe, or about any other distinction. We need every ounce of solidarity to tackle it together. Yet, the pandemic continues to unleash a tsunami of hate and xenophobia, scapegoating and scaremongering.
North Korea on Friday criticised South Korea for conducting military exercises in and above the Yellow Sea, stressing that it violated the Inter-Korean military agreement to reduce tensions. In a statement issued by the Korean Central News Agency, the spokesman for the Ministry of People's Armed Forces said the latest military manoeuvres by South Korea were the height of military confrontation. The spokesman also stressed that the recent military exercise was conducted in the air and sea in the largest hotspot in the West Korean Sea, where military conflicts between the two Koreas took place in the past. And we're taking one last short break now, but stay with us for more. Welcome back to From the South. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases across the African continent continues to grow, with the WHO regional director warning that a spike in numbers is likely to result in the wake of improved and increased testing. While the figures remain low in a number of countries, a sizable number have reported over 100 cases already, while South Africa, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, Cameroon, Guinea, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Djibouti and Nigeria have confirmed more than 1,000 cases. South Africa has been praised by some analysts for its mass testing, which is thought to explain why it has reported one of the largest numbers of cases in the region, but relatively few COVID-19 fatalities. Meanwhile, the Kingdom of Lesotho is the only African country that has so far escaped from the pandemic. According to the World Health Organization, COVID-19 could kill up to 190,000 people across Africa if not contained. And South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has authorised the early release of low-risk inmates to combat the spread of COVID-19 in prisons. In a statement issued on Friday, the presidency said the special COVID-19 parole dispensation would apply to low-risk inmates who have already served their minimum sentence or who would approach this period in the next 5 years. Prisoners affected by this decision will not be pardoned or have their sentences remitted, but will be placed on parole and will continue to serve their sentence under the community correction system until they reach their respective sentence expiry dates. The government of Chad has ordered a total lockdown in the capital and other main cities to stop the spread of the novel coronavirus. The measure comes after 256 positive COVID-19 cases and the death of 27 persons were reported in the capital. However, according to some specialists, the restrictions have been imposed too late. According to the Chadian Public Health Minister, the lockdown will be in place over the next 2 weeks, while the public transport will be suspended and a curfew will be imposed from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. The minister said a lack of social distancing and testing were the main cause of the reported deaths. Chad is one of the less affected countries in Central Africa, where Cameroon appears as the worst hit. Dozens of people have been killed in Rwanda as heavy rains triggered floods and landslides. The country has been hit by torrential downpours that have led to similar scenes playing out across East Africa. The Rwandan government has stated on Wednesday that 65 deaths had been registered due to the flooding, while it confirmed the damages to infrastructure, including roads, houses and bridges. Countries across East Africa have experienced major downpours in recent weeks, with devastating effects for the local populations. Rwanda has also been confronting the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, with 272 cases, although no fatalities have been reported. Russia delivered more than 800 tons of humanitarian aid to Syria on Thursday. General Andrei Terikov, head of logistical support personnel for the Russian armed forces in Syria, said the Sparta 2 container ship had already delivered its cargo to the Syrian port of Tartus. The Russian general explained that the aid will be distributed in convoys to regional departments and the provinces of the country most in need. He also noted that since 2016, Russia has carried out more than 2,400 humanitarian actions in Syria and sent more than 4,000 tons of food and bottled water, as well as other basic goods. The Secretary-General of the Palestine Liberation Organization Executive Committee, Saeb Erekat, denounced the Israeli plans to annex a large part of the West Bank. The PLO Secretary-General stressed that the move would mean the destruction of the Palestinian National Authority. He also added that the response of Palestinians will be conclusive, starting with the cancellation of all agreements with Israel. Erekat warned Israel against adopting unilateral measures and stressed that the annexation plan is based on Trump's Middle East peace plan, dubbed the Deal of the Century, which reproduces a false narrative that denies the existence of the Palestinian people and their right to self-determination. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.